welcome to the Dynamic Duel podcast, a weekly show where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Johnny DC.
And I'm his twin brother, Marvelous Joe.
And we're finally doing another Duel episode.
Finally.
Oh my gosh, it's been so long. I love these episodes. This is going to be a good episode. We're pitting Superboy versus Rogue.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this one for a long time. I love both of these characters. They're both kind of like mainstays in the Superman and X-Men universes. And so I just think they're fantastic characters. The reason we're doing this particular duel now is because of the Reign of the Superman movie that's going to come out next week, which we'll be reviewing in our following episode. So I think This is a great way to kind of look forward to that, as well as get to know these two awesome characters.
Yeah, I honestly have no idea which one of these characters is going to come out on top. I'm pretty excited. But before we get to the duel, we're going to break down the news items from the past week in the world of Marvel and DC, including the Captain Marvel special look that came out recently, the Punisher Season 2 official trailer, and the casting of Luke Wilson in Stargirl.
Yeah, that's a lot of great news. Can't wait to get into it. As always, you can look at the segment times in the episode description to jump to the topic that you want to hear about.
Real quick, a shout out to, I'm going to butcher this, Why Nadir One Love for giving us an iTunes review. If you've been a long-time listener, you know that we're currently really trying hard to get to 200 ratings on the iTunes platform, because once we reach that point, we will officially meet all of the criteria required by Rotten Tomatoes to become a certified Rotten Tomatoes critic.
Yeah, and I'd love to have the reviews that we do for the Marvel and DC movies count toward those films' official Tomato Meter score.
It's a dream of ours. If you guys could help us out, just take a quick 10 seconds to jump onto your iPhone and give us a rating on the Apple Podcasts app. We would super appreciate it.
If you have an iPhone. If not, and you have an iTunes account, it would be great if you could do that on your computer whenever you get the chance.
Now, maybe. You could pause it. You could pause this. Just hit the pause button.
No.
But,
whenever you get around to it would be perfectly fine. But with that out of the way,
quick to the No Prize.
A No Prize is an award Marvel used to give out up until the 90s to fans. Our version, the Dynamic Duel No Prize, is a digital award that we post on social media that Jonathan personally draws for those who we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week. Last week's question was, what do you think Disney will do with the Netflix characters of The Punisher, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, and Luke Cage? Will their next appearances be in TV or in film, and do you think they will be rebooted?
We got a lot of answers.
A lot of great answers here. Shout out to Ken Johnson for his thoughts that the characters will not be rebooted, but brought into a new Tamer Defender show on TV.
Yeah, an honorable mention also goes to Joel Seagrave, who says that he wants those characters to be a part of a Marvel Knights show on Hulu, which is great because Disney, as we've mentioned before, now has a majority share of Hulu.
Right. Yeah, I think that would be fantastic. I really enjoyed the Marvel Knights run back, I think it was in the early 2000s, that combined Black Widow and Shang-Chi and Cloak and Dagger and Daredevil and Moon Knight. Fantastic series when the Marvel Knights line first launched. And I think that would be great, although most of these characters are loners. So I would almost like to see that done in sort of like an anthological series where each episode focuses on a different character, and then maybe the season finale has them joining together or something like that.
A Marvel Knights anthology would be awesome.
That was a fantastic answer.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing that. I know CJ Craft was a huge fan of that answer.
Yeah, and also thanks to Harrison Fox, who gave the answer that he's hoping for a continuation of the existing series on the Disney app, or a Defenders film.
Yeah, I'd be happy with either of those. I don't think they would continue the Netflix shows quite as they exist now on the Disney Plus app.
Yeah, they're too mature.
Yeah, it might go to Hulu instead, or it would have to be tamed down to be on the Disney Plus app.
Yeah.
I would much rather actually probably see a Defenders theatrical film. I think that would be cool. Shout out to Jace Crump, who says that Disney won't do anything with the characters anytime soon. That is a highly depressing thought, but also likely accurate.
Because they can't for the next 2 years.
Right. We know they at least can't do anything of some of the characters for at least 2 years, because that's in the Netflix clause. So hopefully in 2 years we hear that something is in development.
Jacob Bell says that a reboot will happen and that Daredevil will hopefully get his own film, possibly The Punisher as well.
Yeah, he's a huge fan of both of the actors that play the characters and a huge fan of John Bernthal.
And I'm a huge fan of both of those shows.
Yeah, it'd be great to see them both on the big screen. Honorable mention to Mia Moraes, who says there should not be a recast, do not reboot, use the Netflix shows as intros to the characters, and do a huge ensemble movie like The Defenders. So like The Defenders show, except on the big screen.
Yeah, and I wonder how long the Netflix shows are going to remain on Netflix. Because, Netflix, doesn't keep its content up there forever.
Yeah, some of those shows kind of expire over time.
Yeah, they cycle new content in and out, once a month.
Yeah, so if Marvel owns the rights to that content, I would move it to Hulu.
Yeah. But the winner of this week's No Prize goes to George Carnitis.
Solely for the reason that his answer made us laugh. Sometimes, humor points go a long way. He says that he thinks all those characters will get rebooted for the Disney app to fit the Disney brand. So we're going to get new shows like The Sweet Life of Luke Cage and Iron Fist and That's So Daredevil. Fantastic. I wouldn't mind seeing what those shows are like, just for maybe an episode or so. And
no.
Then move back to the regular stuff. But yeah, it made me laugh. So good job, George Canitis. You win this week's No Prize. And if you, the listener, want to win a No Prize, go ahead and stay tuned to later on this episode when we ask another question of the week.
On to the news.
All right, this past Monday, we got a special look at the Captain Marvel movie that's coming out in March. It wasn't quite a full trailer. There was some new footage here to be discussed, though. It was more like a half trailer. I think we are getting another trailer later on in the coming months.
Yeah, they build it as a special look, right?
Yes. But it does give us a little bit more insight into how Carol Danvers is as a character.
Right.
One of the things that we've been saying for the past two trailers for this film is that it's kind of hard to know who Carol Danvers is because she seems a little bit wooden and bland,
Yeah, what is her personality like?
Exactly. I think she could be accurately described as confidently naive or naively confident.
Or a quiet snarky.
Yeah, exactly. So the preview starts off with Carol riding down this desert highway on a motorcycle, and she visits Nick Fury at this local restaurant. And she presents the concept of the Skrulls, and we get some new footage where we see one of the Skrulls transforming into this surfer girl that he sees. I think that's what's happening.
Yeah, the transformation was kind of weird.
It does not look like how I thought it would look like. It almost looks like a reverse Blade vampire disintegration.
Right.
Because, there's some energy kind of going on beneath the skin. It almost looks like a little bit fiery, and it's kind of ashy. There's some purple energy as well.
It looks painful.
It does look painful, whatever's going on, because the Skrull's screaming as it's happening. But it's definitely an interesting take on the Skrull transformations.
Yeah, I thought it would be more stretchy. When I think of the Skrulls transforming, I think of Mr. Fantastic.
Yeah, a little bit. Definitely not the case here. We get a brief rehash of her fight against the old lady on the subway fight, but then
I'm kind of tired of seeing that, honestly.
A little bit, yeah.
The old lady just flipping around. It's kind of ridiculous.
Does that action scene look that compelling to you?
It doesn't sell me at all.
Is this a bus or a train that they're fighting on? It's a train, right?
Yeah.
So that part where she flips on top of the train, is that a continuation of the fight that they start here? Or does she chase the Skrull into the train and the Skrull hides by posing as the old lady?
I think the rooftop is the continuation.
Okay.
I have no idea, but I think the scenes are adjacent in some way.
Yeah, it might turn out to be quite the cool action scene here.
Yeah, if it wasn't an old lady.
Back at the restaurant, Nick Fury asks her to prove that she's not a Skrull, so she does so by blowing up the jukebox with her photon blast.
Yeah, Nick Fury doesn't seem too impressed by it.
I just think it's a funny moment, though, because she's like, see, that's how you know I'm not a Skrull.
And he's like, and?
She's like, a Skrull can't do that.
And then she does the eyebrow raise.
Yeah. I'm always still amazed by the special effects that's being done on Sam Jackson here.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Still amazing.
He time traveled. It's just Sam Jackson from the past.
Speaking of time travel, there were some set reports that had suggested that perhaps Captain Marvel has the power of time travel, although I don't believe them. She's never had that power in the comics. Maybe she goes aboard some kind of space station, like the Alpha Flight space station kind of thing, and maybe time travels through that. But it'll be interesting how they address Sam Jackson's comments about time travel in the Avengers Endgame movie.
Yeah, I know a lot of news outlets are kind of freaking out about that little tidbit and how it'll affect Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, I personally don't think that Carol Danvers will be able to time travel, on her own, how a lot of people are trying to present it.
Uh-huh.
After that moment in the restaurant, we see a lot of the same footage that we saw in the second trailer here.
I think one of my favorite scenes of this trailer, though, was Yanarong training Captain Marvel. We haven't seen that in previous trailers.
You're right, that was new. They're sparring with each other, and she gets angry at him and wants to photon blast him or something. I'm not sure what happens there. But yeah, that was pretty interesting footage.
I'm just obsessed with finding out what's going on with Jude Law's character. It's such a mystery.
Yeah, they're keeping it tightly under wraps. I guess we'll find out in a few months here. Already got my tickets.
Yeah, me too.
They went on sale the moment this special look went online, and those tickets actually went really damn fast.
I'm kind of surprised.
Yeah, I looked the next day, and Fandango was saying that it was one of the fastest ever ticket sales on their website.
It's the third fastest Marvel movie.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Interesting. There was a weird tag at the end of the trailer, though, that just wasn't funny. A lot of these Captain Marvel, like, funny gags just aren't really landing for me.
No, the humor just kind of falls flat at the end.
Yeah, because she's like, oh, so your covert agency wears these branded caps?
Something like that. Like, what she said was like a mouthful.
Yeah.
It's like it took like 5 seconds to get it out.
Right.
When it's supposed to be like this zinger.
Yeah, and Nick Fury was like, says the space alien who wears the rubber suit.
And it's like, what does a rubber suit have to do with the logo?
It's not a great joke.
No.
Not loving these jokes. But that brings us to our question of the week. Which Marvel or DC theatrical release are you looking forward to the most in 2019 and why? So we have Captain Marvel, we have Spider-Man Far From Home, we have Avengers Endgame, we have Shazam, and we have the Joker.
Right.
Let us know which one of these you are looking forward to the most by writing in to our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or you can email us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com. We will pick our favorite answer and draw that person a Dynamic Duel No Prize that we'll post to social media. Moving on to the Punisher trailer that we got. Oh my god, this thing is so damn badass. I love this trailer. It's almost as good as the season 1 trailer that we got that had Metallica's One in it.
Yeah.
They went with another classic 90s rock song. Well, it's weird to call it a classic. It's 20 years ago. Wow. But it's Alice in Chains' Wood.
Right.
And it's done to great effect here. I love it. And this is a violent ass trailer. I think that's my main takeaway from it.
This is the trailer like I was looking for. Like, forget that teaser crap. This is what's selling me on this next season.
Definitely. The action looks just so damn intense. And it looks like there's a whole lot of it this season. I saw so many different set pieces as they were going through the action that it makes me think that the next season is just going to be jam-packed.
Yeah.
The story overall looks like he's protecting this girl who's on the run from the mob. So he's fighting the mob, but also along the way, Jigsaw gets involved.
Yeah, it looks like Jigsaw teams up with like a priest.
Yeah, and maybe it's the same one from Welcome Back, Frank. I'm not sure. The axe murderer. Looks like some of Frank's past in the seminary is coming back to haunt him or something like that.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, there's a lot of villains coming at him from a lot of different angles, and it looks like he's just trying to protect this girl.
And just doing it like in the most brutal fashion ever.
Oh man, he like slams this dude's head down onto a knife.
No!
Like I thought he was just holding the knife and then slamming the guy's head down onto the bar, but he slams the guy's head onto the knife.
Boom, instant death.
That's nuts. He's got like some assault rifle action going, some sniper action going. Jigsaw's gang at one point, it looks like they're all wearing masks. So it's not just like him covering up his face. It looks like his whole team is, which is an interesting take because it's a very comic book villainy thing to do in a show that has thus far not been quite so comic booky, you know?
Right. But it works. I mean, if you're going to commit a crime, hide your face.
Right, exactly. It makes sense. In the real world context, though, hiding your face like that in those kind of masks is just creepy as hell. I love the way they're selling it here. We see the return of Nadani here. I'm really glad that she's coming back because she was a great part of Punisher Season 1.
Yeah.
I wonder what kind of the relationship between Frank and Nadani will be in this season, or like what she's currently doing like career-wise. If she's going to be able to help him out or if she's going to be trying to stop him.
And you know, what is her relationship with Jigsaw going to be like?
Yeah, that's true because, they used to be lovers.
Right.
Yeah, great point. I don't know. At one point during this trailer, there was an action scene that was so intense that it was hard to believe that it was a stunt and that somebody didn't actually die during the course of filming. Because John Bernthal slams this dude's head onto this sink that breaks open, you know, but it's done in such a brutal and realistic way. I think
someone died.
There must be some kind of cover-up on the production of The Punisher because it's just too real looking and too intense.
Yeah, it's insane. That guy has to be like a dummy or something, or he's just dead. Because that didn't look CG.
Oh, definitely not, no.
He's just kicking so much ass in this trailer, and he gets his ass kicked.
Oh, yeah, like there was a part where they were like all stomping on his chest and everything, and he was completely surrounded.
He was getting stabbed? It's like, holy crap!
Yeah, but then he like grabs a gun and then he starts kicking all their asses. It's just going to be an amazing season. The comedic tag at the very end of this trailer was done much better than the one at the end of the Captain Marvel special look.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was funnier.
It was.
Basically, they're sitting in the van, and Frank tells the girl to get him food, and she's like, okay, I need money. So he hands her a wad of rolled up 50s or something like that, but they're covered in blood. And just like the look exchanges that they give each other is done pretty well comedically, I think.
Yeah, the timing is spot on. Just like, she looks at it, she like sighs, she like turns it over, she looks at him. It's just good acting.
She's like, that won't be conspicuous at all.
Right.
Yeah. Overall, I like this actually more than the Captain Marvel special look, and I'm really looking forward to reviewing this season at the end of this month.
Yeah, it's coming up quick.
Yeah, just a few days.
Oh, I didn't realize that quick. Holy cow. Well, good. Moving on, Luke Wilson is joining the Stargirl cast as Pat Dugan, a.k.a. S.T.R.I.P.E.
Right, and this is the Stargirl show that's going to be on the DC Universe streaming app later on this year?
Yeah, at the end of the year, it'll be on there. It's kind of taking like the slot of Titans, which kind of has me worried. Like, when are we going to hear about season 2 of Titans?
Do you think they'll not release a season 2 this year?
No, they're not going to.
Oh.
Yeah, they haven't announced it on their schedule.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, it does. But the cast for this show is so good. Like, I can't believe they're getting this talent for all of these shows that are only appearing on a platform that not a whole lot of people are seeing.
Well, this is the way to bring people in.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I'm always a big fan of Luke Wilson. Like, I love Old School, I love Royal Tenenbaums, and he's playing Pat Dugan. I could have sworn this character was cast previously, but I guess not.
So tell us about Pat Dugan. Who is he? I know that when you first started collecting DC Comics, one of the series that you were reading was Stars and Stripe.
No, I actually only ever had one issue of that, but it was like one of the very first comics that I had gotten. Someone gave it to me. I never bought it.
Okay. But Stripe was a robot, right? Stripe is an acronym for something.
Yeah, it's S.T.R.I.P.E. and stands for Special Tactics Robot Integrated Power Enhancer.
You didn't have to look that up, right?
Oh, I totally did. I totally did. No, but it's a suit of armor that he wears, you know, where he could like fire off missiles and laser blasts and stuff like that.
Was Stripe like her sidekick or something like that?
Yeah, he was, sort of. But he was also the sidekick to the original Star Spangled Kid, ShDEsI, who's being played by Joel McHale.
Okay.
So essentially, Luke Wilson is going to be the former sidekick of Joel McHale if they're doing this according to comic book canon.
Uh-huh.
He'll also be a sidekick of sorts to Stargirl.
Now, being a robot, do you think they're going to take the Robot Man route in the Doom Patrol series where it's like a suit, like a rubber suit? Or do you think they'll go the CGI route? Since Stripe is supposed to be a larger sort of robot, isn't he?
Yeah, you can't do the Robot Man route. S.T.R.I.P.E. is just too big.
So yeah, probably CGI then. That'll be interesting. Because it'll be a very, special effects heavy show. Also considering Stargirl's powers with, her cosmic rod and everything.
Yeah, it's going to be super CG heavy.
More so than a show like, say, Titans. Although, I guess Raven and Beast Boy, they have a lot of CGI visual effects going on with them.
Yeah, but they didn't use their powers too often. I imagine in this show, just because they're dealing with, like, giant robots and stuff, that, it'll be more special effects heavy.
Yeah, something probably similar to, like, how Legends of Tomorrow is. They have a ton of special effects on that show.
A ton. And that show deals with time travel, and this show is supposed to deal with time travel. And I wonder how big of a role Luke Wilson's character is actually going to have. Because you would think, like, since the character is Stargirl's stepfather and sort of like the reason she became a superhero,
oh, really? Okay.
He would almost be, like, second build.
Uh-huh.
So that'll be cool when it comes out.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, looking forward to that later on this year. But I think that does it for all of the news. So we're going to go ahead and get into our Superboy versus Rogue duel matchup. So let's get into it.
Okay, so Superboy versus Rogue. When we found out that the Reign of the Superman film was coming out, I knew I wanted to do one of the 4, like, replacement Superman after Superman's death.
Right, because you have Steel, Superboy,
Cyborg Superman, and the Eradicator.
Right.
And my favorite of the group is probably Superboy.
Yes, I think a lot of people think of Superboy as just like a shorter Superman.
Right.
But he's a very unique character, and he has a slightly different power set as well.
He started off with a very different power set just because of him being a clone.
Right.
A lot of his power has to do with touch.
Yeah.
He has what's called tactile telekinesis.
Right, so to affect things, he has to be able to touch them for the most part.
Yeah.
Same thing with Rogue. Her power set is very touch-based. Her power absorption ability depends on her making physical contact with the being that she wants to drain the power from.
Right. And I remember, like, when I was first watching the X-Men cartoon when I was younger, I didn't quite understand that. It wasn't until, like, the X-Men movies, I think, that I kind of grasped that. Because in the cartoon, I just assumed she was sort of like Superman. She flew, she had super strength.
Yeah, they didn't play too much on her power draining abilities except for, like, a few episodes here and there. But it was always interesting when she was able to do that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of, like, similarities, I think, between the characters.
Yeah, also because in the 90s, they wore some sweet-ass leather jackets.
Yeah, and actually Superboy, like, he just went back to that.
Really?
In the comics, yeah. It's kind of a cool look.
Style comes full circle all the time.
Before we get into the match, just a quick breakdown of how this works. Since Joseph and I are so beholden to our respective comic book universes, we take a non-bias approach because we are super biased.
Yeah, it's a mathematical, kind of scientific approach to determine who would win in a fight between these characters.
Right, so we don't do fan votes. There's no uncharacteristic feats of strength. It's just stats.
Right, we take stats for each character and we compare them against each other 1,000 times. We run what's called a Monte Carlo simulation that places each stat on a normal distribution, which is a bell curve, and that accounts for all the variables that take place during battle.
Yeah, and most of our stats are based on the official Marvel Power Rankings.
Right, which you can look up on marvel.com.
Yeah, we extrapolate the DC character stats from those, and we incorporate a few more that we think helps create a more robust simulation.
Right. Before we run the simulations, though, what we like to do is give a breakdown of each character's history and powers, and then we improvise a kind of scenario on how we think a fight between the two characters would go.
Yeah, one of the 1,000 simulations.
Right.
Which no character ever wins 100% of. The results we get from the Monte Carlo simulation is always a percentage of wins.
Right, correct. Because really, if it's a fair enough match, either character could be any other character. We're just looking for the character that wins the most against each other.
And we declare that character the winner.
Right. So let's go ahead and get into the backstory of Superboy.
All right. So Superboy is actually a title held by several people throughout DC's history, originally by Superman himself during his teenage adventures. Currently, in the comics, Superman's son, Jonathan Kent, goes by the name Superboy, but when I think of Superboy, I think of Kon-El, aka Connor Kent, a young clone of Superman who first appeared in 1993 following the death of Superman event.
Mm-hmm.
After Superman seemingly died at the hands of Doomsday, which you can learn more about in our Doomsday vs. Hulk episode, the head of a government research organization known as Project Cadmus, which specialized in genetic research, decided to create a replacement of Superman using his DNA. They had his body for a short time, which they studied, and they realized that Superman's Kryptonian DNA allowed him to emanate a thin energy field, or force field, around his body that contributed to his super strength, invulnerability, and even flight.
Right, so it's not just like super muscle power that Superman uses to lift these heavy objects. It's kind of like this little mini force field that he creates.
Yeah, it's like an invisible energy field that surrounds his body and like his clothing.
Which is why Superman's clothes are also protected when he goes into battle.
Exactly.
For the most part.
For the most part, right. So Project Cadmus's executive director, Paul Westfield, came to the conclusion that after 12 unsuccessful attempts at cloning Kryptonian DNA, they should incorporate human DNA in the process and enhance the clone's force field control to mimic many of Superman's powers, an ability the scientists called tactile telekinesis. This resulted in the success of Experiment 13, which grew from a single cell into a teenage boy within a week. Age-appropriate memories and educational knowledge were implanted into the clone as he grew, but he was released from his growth chamber too early before he could reach full maturation, and would henceforth remain at the developmental stage of 16 years old. Experiment 13 arrived on the Metropolis scene calling himself Superman, though the media referred to him as Superboy because of his age, which irritated him, and for a while he preferred the moniker the Metropolis Kid. He used his powers, which initially consisted solely of tactile telekinesis, to protect Metropolis along with 3 other would-be Superman replacements, including Steel, Cyborg Superman, and the Eradicator, up until the real Superman's resurrection and return, which you can learn more about in our Superman vs. Dr. Doom episode. Superboy fought alongside Superman for a short time after his return, but Superboy soon started working for Project Cadmus in Hawaii, preferring to tackle his own missions rather than play sidekick. But he was always back in Metropolis whenever Superman needed him, and eventually, during a virtual tour of Krypton in Superboy's first visit to the Fortress of Solitude, Superman explained to Superboy how he considered him family, and since Superboy didn't have a real name and everyone mostly just called him Kid, Superman gave him the Kryptonian name of Kon-El, which would later evolve into an alter ego of Connor Kent. Around this time, Superboy teamed up with fellow teen heroes Robin and the Flash sidekick Impulse, becoming a founding member of the Young Justice team. The team would grow to include members such as Secret, a ghost, the Archer Arrowette, and Wonder Woman sidekick Cassie Sandsmark, aka Wonder Girl, with whom Superboy would later develop a romantic relationship. The team would go on many adventures up until the death of Wonder Woman's former sidekick, Donna Troy. The Young Justice members went their separate ways, and Superboy lived for a time with Superman's parents, Jonathan and Martha Kent, in Smallville. It wasn't long before he was recruited into a new Teen Titans team by the hero Cyborg. Early in his membership, he began developing additional Kryptonian powers like heat vision, and he was placed in charge of Krypto the Superdog, who you can learn more about in our Krypto vs. Throg episode. He also learned, with the help of Robin, that the human DNA used in the cloning process to create him came from none other than Lex Luthor, which bothered him a great deal. The Teen Titans traveled to the 31st century to help the future intergalactic teen team known as the Legion of Superheroes fight the Fatal 500. After their success in their attempt to return to their present timeline, they accidentally ended up 10 years in the future, where they saw older, evil versions of themselves. And Superboy not only learned that one day he would grow to possess a full Kryptonian power set, he would also become even more powerful than Superman thanks to his tactile telekinesis. But he was forced to once again cope with the knowledge that he is half made up of Lex Luthor and would most likely use his great power for evil. When the Teen Titans eventually made their way back to their proper timeline, Lex Luthor revealed to Superboy that he was involved in Superboy's creation with the intent of creating a sleeper agent that could be used to one day defeat Superman. Lex Luthor programmed verbal command keywords into Superboy when he was still in development at Project Cadmus, and Lex Luthor used this to send Superboy on a mind-controlled rampage of the Teen Titans headquarters that nearly killed everyone on the team. Superboy was able to regain control before he killed anyone, but he was so horrified by his actions that he left the team and superheroics to isolate himself on the Kent farm, during which time Raven brought some consolation to him by revealing to Superboy that his clone body had developed, during his years, a soul. Little did Superboy know that there was another Superboy from another dimension named Superboy Prime who was watching him and the rest of the DC superheroes. Superboy Prime was in a pocket dimension along with the original Golden Age Superman and Lois Lane, and Alexander Luthor Jr. from Earth 3, a dimension where heroes were villains and villains were heroes. These four survived the Crisis on Infinite Earths event from the 80s that merged the multiverse and reset DC continuity. Having retained their memories of their early Golden and Silver Age adventures, these four watched over the DC universe and lamented how dark it had become over the years. They left their pocket dimension and began influencing and interfering with the universe with the ultimate goal of recreating the multiverse and using the best parts of each one to form a perfect utopia dimension, destroying the others. Superboy Prime, who in canon was a teenager from our world named Clark Kent, who got thrust into the comics, had a big problem with the current clone Superboy, whose lower standards of heroism, his rash and insecure nature, and ultimately his innate corruption and programming by Lex Luthor made Superboy Prime conclude that Kon-El should not exist. The two Superboys fought several times, though Superboy Prime, capable of lifting planets, had an obvious strength advantage. Kon-El died in a battle with Superboy Prime, though their battle helped destroy Alexander Luthor Jr.'s giant tuning fork device that would have recreated the multiverse. He was mourned by the entire superhero community for his sacrifice, as well as by Lex Luthor, who truly considered him his son. He was eventually resurrected 1,000 years later when a member of the Legion of Superheroes traveled back in time and put his body in a healing chrysalis so that he would emerge in the 31st century to help the Legion in their own fight against Superboy Prime. After their successful defeat of Superboy Prime in the future, Superboy was returned to the present. In the New 52, Kon-El was cloned by the time-traveling leader of an organization named Nowhere, who combined the DNA of Superman, Lois Lane, and their son. In the Rebirth era, Kon-El has most recently joined a new version of Young Justice, and that comic came out like yesterday.
And in the Rebirth era, does he still have the tactile telekinesis?
I assume things can change in this new series. In the Rebirth era, you're not quite sure what's going to be retained from the previous continuity and what's not.
Okay. I hope they keep that, because ever since his first appearance back in the 90s, after the death of Superman, that's always kind of what made him stand out in my mind, was this like new unique power set.
Yeah,
it's kind of like a riff on Superman.
You don't need another Superman.
Right. Exactly. That's what the current Superboy is, basically. He's just a younger Superman.
Sort of. He can't fly, and he doesn't have a lot of his powers yet, but yeah,
Okay.
kind of.
Interesting.
So, power-wise, Superboy's abilities are primarily a result of his enhanced control over his own personal force field, which allows him to affect objects he's touching. So, although he's strong, instead of lifting an object with super strength, he can levitate it by instantly extending his force field around the object. This also gave him increased durability, flight, super speed, and the ability to send telekinetic blasts or shockwaves through the ground or other surfaces. Over time, his strength and speed levels increased as he drew in more solar radiation and developed his innate Kryptonian abilities, including heat vision, super breath, and super senses.
What power doesn't he have that's part of the main Superman's?
Oh, nothing now.
Oh.
But as we learned in the future version of himself, he's going to become even more powerful than Superman by being able to create like telekinetic like energy shields and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting.
His Kryptonian DNA, however, also comes with weaknesses to kryptonite and red solar radiation. Not that that'll matter in this match.
No, probably not. Yeah, I've always been a big fan of Superboy. He was always one of my favorite members of Young Justice and then later the Titans from those few comics that I read that you owned of him.
Yeah, because we used to read each other's comics. I don't think we've ever mentioned that before. Like when I first branched off into DC and you stayed with Marvel, like for a long time, like I was reading Marvel and you were reading DC. Not so much anymore.
Right,
But yeah, you know, you've read Superboy comics and I've read Rogue comics.
Yeah, and I've never been really impressed with the DC comics. But yeah, always been a big fan of Superboy, but not more than I love Rogue. I love Rogue because not only does she have one of the coolest power sets in all of comics, but because of who she is as a character. She's had one of the most inhibitive caveats out of all the X-Men's powers for the longest time, in that she couldn't experience human touch. But she grew in her personality from a bitter and morose woman into a fun-loving spirit and accomplished leader. She's a great example of mind over matter, how to make the best out of a bad situation. Anna Marie was born in a Mississippi hippie commune to Owen and Priscilla, parents who were much too young and responsible to care for her. While in the commune, they hired a shaman to take them on a spiritual journey to a Native American dreamland, and in the process, her mother disappeared. After that mishap, Anna Marie's Aunt Carrie raised her in a strict and rough home to prevent her from making the same mistakes as her careless parents. She often rebelled against her aunt, earning her the nickname Rogue. As a teenager, she had her first kiss with a boy named Cody at a time when her power-draining mutant abilities manifested. During the kiss, the boy's life energy was drained and he slipped into a coma in which he remained for the rest of his life.
Oh, geez.
Horrified, Rogue ran away from home into the Mississippi swamps, where she first encountered Raven Darkholme, aka Mystique, from the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Mystique took in the frightened, lonely, and bitter teenager and cared for her as her own daughter. Anna Marie closed herself off to the outside world both emotionally and physically, having to cover herself nearly from head to toe for others' protection. Mystique manipulated Rogue's anger to get her to join the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, where she fought against the X-Men and the Avengers. She eventually fought Carol Danvers' Miss Marvel, who would later be known as Captain Marvel. During that fight, Carol's Kree-human hybrid DNA, as well as her own absorption powers, reacted strangely with Rogue's abilities, in that she was largely able to resist the power absorption. This led Rogue to hold on for an extended period of time, until Miss Marvel was completely drained of her power, and Rogue had permanently acquired Miss Marvel's strength and flight, as well as her complete memories. Carol went into a coma, but was able to regain her memories with the help of Professor X, and her powers through experimentation by the alien race known as the Brood. You can learn more about Carol Danvers in our Supergirl vs. Captain Marvel Duel episode. Rogue, now with the memories of Carol conflicting with her own, feared for her sanity and identity. When she realized that being a villain in Mystique's Brotherhood would not help her fix her mental state, she decided to switch sides and join the X-Men, where Professor X and the others would help her cope with her abilities and repair her mind.
I had forgotten that she was a villain.
Yeah, she was a villain for quite a while, actually. Mystique was initially angered over Rogue's switch, but came to understand her decision. Though the X-Men were reluctant to have one of their enemies join the team, Professor X convinced them that Rogue was capable of rehabilitation, and later on, Rogue earned the team's trust by nearly sacrificing herself during a mission in Japan to save Wolverine's fiancée Mariko, who you can learn more about in our Hawkman vs. Wolverine Duel episode. Through fighting with the X-Men over time, she became a central character to the team, helping defeat the likes of the Juggernaut, the Adversary, and Nimrod, the latter of which she had to absorb the powers of the entire team to overcome. During a later fight with the Sentinel, she freely sacrificed her powers using a gem called the Siege Perilous, freeing her not only of her abilities, but the memories of Carol Danvers as well. Her powers were restored, however, after she was captured by the powerful evil psychic known as the Shadow King. It was during this conflict that she first met the mutant known as Gambit. The two began dating, however the relationship was often strained by the fact that they were not able to make physical contact, and the dark secret of Gambit's past that he would not share with her. Unable to cope, she left the team to wander the country and work as a waitress, though she eventually came back to the team to help fight against the psychic entity known as Onslaught. At one point, she was elected to lead the X-Men team, a role in which she was very adept. It was during this leadership tenure that Earth became a penal colony for alien prisoners in a comics event called Maximum Security. After some of Thanos' minions began killing a group of mutant Skrulls that Professor X had trained, one of the Skrulls made contact with Rogue in an effort to psychically transmit Charles' plans. The Skrull enhanced Rogue's powers telepathically, and she found herself able to call forth the abilities and memories of anyone she had ever absorbed in the past.
Holy cow.
Though at times those powers would manifest unexpectedly, and she found herself even more unable to control her mutant abilities. Because of this, she stepped down as leader, though eventually she was able to overcome the random power manifestations and joined Storm's Extreme X-Men to obtain the diaries of a mutant prophet named Destiny. While leading another X-Men strike team, she was infected by a villain named Pandemic with a virus called Strain 88 that amplified her powers to an instantaneous touch of death.
Whoa.
She was cured of the death touch, as well as all the memories and powers she had ever absorbed, by the infant Hope Summers before the child was taken and raised by Cable. Rogue went into seclusion in Australia, where she was attacked by the Sentient Danger Room. Professor X and the Shi'ar aliens managed to shut Danger down, and it was revealed that Rogue was never able to control her powers because of psychic walls that her mind would manifest in an effort to quarantine the memories of those she absorbed. Using this knowledge, Professor X tore down the mental walls that were preventing Rogue's powers to develop, and she was now finally in control, meaning that she was now able to touch people safely, and when using her powers, she was able to control what she absorbed, whether it just be memories or powers, and whether or not it caused the other person any pain.
Oh well.
She reunited with Gambit, and the two moved to San Francisco to regroup with the X-Men, and later she taught students in the X-Mansion after the team split between the Utopia and Westchester locations. She was teleported to a strange alien planet during the Avengers vs. X-Men event, but with the assistance of an alien friend, she was able to make her way back to Earth. After the event, she joined and later led the Avengers Unity Division, an Avengers team that strove toward peaceful human and mutant relations. While on that team, she had to absorb the powers of all her teammates in order to help the Sentry repel an attack by a Celestial named Exitar. Afterward, however, she realized that the strength and flight powers of Wonder Man were not leaving her, much in the same way that Miss Marvel's didn't.
Oh, weird.
She rejoined the X-Men at Iceman's request and reignited her romance with Gambit. After a wedding ceremony in which Shadowcat left Colossus at the altar, Rogue and Gambit spontaneously took their place and got married. Rogue has the ability to temporarily absorb the mental and physical faculties of other beings through physical touch, including their memories, knowledge, and natural abilities. This process can be draining for the affected, and if Rogue were to hold on for long enough, the being could slip into a coma. However, sufficiently powerful beings have been able to withstand the draining effect to some extent. The time that the absorbed powers reside in Rogue is dependent upon how long the touch lasted. With the exception of Miss Marvel, Wonder Man, and a few others, Rogue gains a minute of absorbed power for each second of physical contact. In addition to her power-draining touch, Rogue has the powers of super strength, flight, and near invulnerability, which were permanently absorbed from Wonder Man.
Well, lucky you.
Yeah, thank God. Although I'm a big fan of just her power-draining abilities, when you think of like classic Rogue, you always think of her as, like the flying, super strong female X-Men character.
Right.
So, it's no wonder that they keep giving her that power set. So yeah, with the histories and powers of the characters out of the way, let's go ahead and get into our speculative scenario on how we think a match between the two characters would go. The only rules that we set for the matchup is that the characters start about 50 meters apart. They don't know anything about each other than that they have to put the other person down because they're a threat, and that the fight takes place in an environment that plays no bearing on the match itself.
Right, because we don't account for stats from the environment because it's too variable. One character can have an advantage in a certain environment and not in another.
Correct. So we just say no environment. The fight is taking place in a nondescript location.
Yeah, they win on their own merits, not by any kind of environmental advantage.
Exactly. Yeah, so let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so they appear on the battlefield, 50 meters apart.
Right.
Who goes first?
I'm going to say Superboy.
Why?
Because he's badass. So, like, he sees her, and right away he does, like, this sweet, like, superhero pose, like Deadpool's superhero landing. And he sends, like, a telekinetic pulse through the ground to blast Rogue up into the air.
Okay, so like kind of like a mini tremor that he sent through the ground that like telekinetically blasted Rogue up off the ground?
Right, exactly.
Okay. Oh, well, that's no big deal because she can fly. As well as, you know...
Yeah, but she still gets hit by the telekinetic, like, force.
She's super durable, so I don't think that's going to be a huge problem for her. But she does realize, she's like, wow, how did he just, like, pop me up into the air? He must have, like, some kind of ability that it can channel, like, earthquakes or something like that. I'm not quite sure if she understands that he has tactile telekinesis at this point.
Yeah, the tactile telekinesis is kind of exclusive only to Superboy, which makes him, like, I think, pretty unique.
Yeah. So she's up in the air and decides to press the attack. She flies towards him, fist first, in an effort to punch him, and she makes contact right on Superboy's dome piece.
Well, no, as she's flying towards him, you know, fist forward,
Yeah.
he meets the challenge. He flies back at her, and so they, like, sort of collide, and they just kind of, like, fist bump. No, they kind of, like, explode off of each other.
From the force of the impact.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So Rogue's like, oh, he's strong just like me. She knows that she's dealing with like a powerful super being, and she knows that probably her best means of defeating him is probably to drain some of that power.
Right.
So at this point she removes the gloves.
Uh-oh.
All right, so she flies at him again, just like she did prior, with fist forward in an effort to punch him. He probably does the same, just like how he just did. Except this time, instead of colliding together in a punch impact, she grabs his fist and starts draining his power.
Okay, but as soon as she does that, he feels his power being drained. So he extends his telekinetic force field so that she's no longer touching his skin.
What?
Yeah, he could do that. If someone has him in, like, a hold, he could extend his force field and just, like, slip out.
Okay, that's weird. Like, kind of like Invisible Woman, kind of? Is it an invisible force field?
Yeah, you can't see his force field.
Interesting. So she can't make contact with him if he's extending his force field?
She can't do it for long. No. That helps him with his durability, is having that force field and being able to manipulate it.
How long can he maintain this extended force field?
Indefinitely.
Well, what the fuck? I didn't know he could do that.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Okay, well, she was able to siphon off some of his power.
Like 1 second.
Okay, but that means that for a whole minute, she is stronger and he is weaker.
Okay.
Damn it. So at that point, she has his memories and everything now. She knows all about him. She knows what his power set is, and she fires off a blast of heat vision. This just like singes off Superboy's little stupid spit curl on his hair.
He doesn't have a spit curl.
He doesn't? I thought he did.
I guess he kind of did early on. But no, he meets her heat vision with his own.
God damn it.
He may be slightly weaker, but he still has like things like heat vision.
Okay, so then she comes back at him with some tactile telekinesis of her own. She reaches for him again, touches his force field, and with her own tactile telekinesis, just shatters that force field. Okay?
You can't do that.
Why can't you do that? She can't affect his tactile telekinesis with her own tactile telekinesis?
No, because it's like an energy. Like, Superboy has a really hard time, like, blocking things like energy or, like, you know, removing things like energy chains or anything like that, you know? It has to be something he can, like, touch.
Okay, so he's having a hard time blocking her own energy force field that is affecting his energy force field.
No, because there was actually another clone that was successful after Superboy, and his name was Match. They weren't able to affect each other's force fields.
So you're saying that Rogue only has complete control over her own force field and is not able to affect Superboy's force field, even though you just got done saying how his powers are somewhat susceptible to other energy-based attacks. And the force field itself is energy-based.
Yes, Rogue is not going to be able to get through Superboy's force field.
Okay, fine. I mean, I guess that makes sense. So I guess ignore the statement that I said previously about Rogue dissipating Superboy's energy field.
Oh yeah, I am. I'm totally ignoring it.
All right, but Rogue still has that minute of power still going. She's still on the clock.
So she's stronger than Superboy, is what you're saying.
Well, potentially, because Rogue is as strong as Wonder Man, who's class 100 strength. I don't know how strong Superboy is.
He's not as strong as Superman.
Okay.
He's becoming stronger, but since, you know, he's still a teenager and hasn't absorbed as much solar radiation, he's definitely not as strong.
So yeah, I'm going to say that Rogue is physically stronger than Superboy.
Okay.
So she comes with a flying kick right to his nuts.
Oh, jeez.
Down with the patriarchy.
No!
The pain.
Okay. I mean, he could still be, physically attacked and physically injured.
Right.
Like his battle with Superboy Prime. It's not like his force field makes him completely invulnerable. So yeah, he's hurt for sure.
Does that mean that his force field is kind of like bendy? Like, how does Superboy get hurt physically with that force field?
Well, I mean, it's added protection. It's not like complete protection. Superman was still beaten to death by Doomsday.
Right. Right.
So it has its limits for sure.
Okay. So Rogue is going to test these limits.
Yeah.
With that kick to the nuts. That was the first step.
Yep, that was a big test. Okay, so Superboy's down on the ground, and he's in pain, and, Rogue comes after him to, finish the job, but he uses his super breath to, freeze her mid-flight. She just, crashes to the ground.
Okay, I mean, it's just ice. It's not really going to hurt her that much.
She's frozen.
I mean, she can break ice. Ice is extremely breakable.
Yeah, but it's going to give him that second he needs to recover from the kick to the nuts.
It takes more than a second to recover from a kick to the nuts, my friend. Have you been kicked in the nuts?
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to take longer than a second. He's going to be like, oh, it's in my throat.
It's in my stomach.
I'm going to throw up. But yeah, she's down on the ground in the ice. She breaks out of the ice and stands back up while Superboy kind of hobbles back up from the ground.
So Superboy is definitely going to be hesitant about approaching her because he knows that she has power draining abilities through touch.
Right.
So he's going to keep his distance, and he's going to fire more heat vision at her.
Okay, well, she dodges out of the way of the heat because she has Superboy's speed.
Right.
She goes up behind him, and she grabs his stupid jacket, and she, pulls it over his head, and then, slams him into the ground. Yeah, like hockey fight style. I don't think Rogue will be wearing her leather jacket during this fight, in case you're wondering.
Okay, but when he's down on the ground and his jacket is over him, that's when he just rips his jacket into 2 pieces. How dare you, by the way, for making me ruin that jacket. And he wraps it around his hands for added protection so she can't make physical contact with him.
Oh, added protection, you mean added padding?
Maybe, but I mean, he can still grab her. So he does that. So he grabs her, and then with his super speed, he flies up into the air and then telekinetically force blasts her back down to the earth.
Uh-huh. So she slams into the ground.
Right, and then he follows it up just by super stomping her. And as they make impact on the ground, that's when he does another telekinetic blast, sending her even further into the earth.
Wow.
That's my super combo.
That's definitely a good combo. Okay, so Rogue was slammed into the ground and then stomped on and then blasted again into the ground.
Right.
Okay, so while he's stomping her into the ground with his feet,
right,
she grabs his ankle, which he wasn't expecting. He didn't have it covered with his telekinetic force field.
He has his whole body covered.
Yeah, but at certain parts it's stronger than others, And
right.
and she's stronger, so she squeezes really hard to actually make contact and start draining him. And you know what? Now that I just think about it, you can't say that Superboy can't be affected by Rogue's powers because of the villain Parasite. Parasite is just like Rogue in that he drains Superman and Superboy's powers with his touch. So it's a thing that can happen.
I honestly can't think of a time that those two have fought each other. I mean, Parasite can definitely drain Superman's powers, and he has the force field.
Right.
Superboy has greater control over his.
Okay, so the rule for this match, we'll say, is that when Superboy has his force field constricted to just skin level, Rogue is able to drain him. Only by extending his force field can he hope to stop Rogue's draining abilities.
Right.
That means that when she grabs his ankle as she's being stomped into the ground, guess what?
What?
He's getting drained.
Okay.
And then she does a reversal where she throws him in the ground while grabbing his ankle. And she keeps draining it until he decides to, extend his force field. But at that point, she has his abilities, probably for the rest of the duration of this match.
Oh, gosh. Okay, well, he's learned his lesson. For the rest of this match, he's going to extend his force field a little bit farther so she can't make complete physical contact.
I don't think that'll matter because with as much power as she has for the duration that she'll now have it, which is, we'll say 10 minutes now, that's all the time she's going to need because she's going to be stronger, she's going to be as fast as he is, and she's going to have everything like the heat vision to counteract all of his powers. So, as far as I'm concerned, this match is done. For the most part, they have the same powers, but Rogue has that strength advantage.
Well, we'll see if the stats agree.
All right, let's go ahead and see who comes out on top by running the 1,000 simulations, and we'll come back with the winner.
Really, I think this fight comes down to whether or not Rogue can drain Superboy.
I want to say that in their typical state, Superboy is a little bit more impressive stats-wise because he has the speed, he has the heat vision, He has all the tricks with his tactile telekinesis, and Rogue is largely dependent upon making physical contact, not just with her strength, but with her power draining abilities.
Right.
But over time, the longer this match goes on, the longer I see Rogue being able to defeat Superboy. So if Superboy can make it a quick fight, then he has the advantage. And I'm not sure that he has the gumption to actually be that merciless.
I think he has as much gumption as Rogue. I just don't know if he has the firepower to take out someone with the strength and durability of Rogue. Because, heat vision can only do so much.
Right.
Especially if she's trying to dodge it. And that's probably his biggest advantage, is that he has ranged attacks.
Right.
So the longer he could keep her at bay, the better it is for him.
Yes. I mean, she needs to bring it in close in order to win this.
For the stats in this match, we had to find a way to incorporate Rogue's power draining abilities into her stats.
Right. So what we did is we determined what the stats would be for her typical state without having drained any of Superboy's abilities. So we took that number, and then we took Superboy's stat number, if it was different in that case, for that particular category, and then we averaged it. So Rogue never really had her typical state stats. They were always equal or approaching Superboy's. Right. Or greater than in the cases in which she was more powerful than Superboy, for example, in terms of strength. We said that in her typical state, Rogue was naturally stronger than Superboy because of the Wonder Man power acquisition. And although DC doesn't operate on a strict class 100 type measurement,
right,
it is for reference purposes. We say that Wonder Man is about as strong as Superman, and Superman is stronger than Superboy. So that's where we got that from.
Right, and our stat manipulation of Rogue is just sort of like a byproduct of the character. She would get different figures if she was going up against someone else.
Right, exactly.
So we think we did the best job we could to account for all the different variables that can occur in this match. So with all of those caveats aside, who do you think won?
Actually, looking at the stats, I think I would have to give it to Superboy, actually, because there were quite a few stats here, such as range, such as evasiveness, that Rogue could not match in her typical state. She had to work her way towards his stats through the power absorption.
Right.
So I think in more cases, more often than not, Superboy's stats were actually higher than Rogue's, with just a few minor exceptions. So I think Superboy is going to win this one, as much as it pains me to say that.
Well, I do have the results here, and we set up a new spreadsheet so that you won't be the only one who is able to access the results.
Right.
So we're going to be trading off. And the winner of the Superboy versus Rogue match is Rogue Superboy.
Fuck, I knew it.
Which actually is super surprising. Because before looking at this results page, I was like, there's no way. Like, after that speculation, like, Rogue, all she has to do is just, grab him and hold on to him. Granted, that's probably difficult with Superboy more so than any other character, maybe.
Yeah,
but,
because he could blast her away, he could extend his force field, he could make it really difficult for her to win.
Yeah. So, what percentage do you think Superboy won?
I'm going to say it was, in the 70s, 72 or something.
Oh, wow. You give him a lot of credit. No, it was closer than that.
Oh, thank God.
Superboy won 63% even of the time.
Oh, wow, okay. That's not bad. Even? Yeah.
Right.
So Rogue won 37% of the matches.
Right, 370 out of the 1,000 matches.
Interesting. Well, I really thought I was going into this one being the clear winner, but then once we started inputting the stats, I think that's when it kind of dawned on me that it might go this way. Superboy, he is an impressive character with a unique power set that is in some ways kind of the best power set to protect himself against someone like Rogue. And even though both of their powers are both touch-based and pretty damn cool, his tactile powers are just slightly cooler than Rogue's.
Oh, I agree completely.
And actually, I think Rogue would actually have an easier time defeating Superman than Superboy.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, look at Parasite.
Right, yeah, exactly. But yeah, that does it for this match.
Another win for DC.
Fuck. We got to pick better matches. I think overall, during the course of all the duels that we've done, I think DC right now is ahead by 4 matches. So, not too much. We can easily make that up during the course of a summer.
Or not. DC could just keep going, going forever.
No. Because overall, as we all know, Marvel is better. And if you agree, write in and tell us why by reaching out to us on our Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. You can find links to all of those sites by visiting our webpage, dynamicduel.com.
And if you're woke, you can let us know how much you like DC more. Also on our site, you can get a link to our merchandise store, where we sell various t-shirts and mugs and different things with our no prize art on them.
Yeah, definitely check those out if you want to support the podcast, and also if you just want some pretty cool Marvel and DC inspired swag.
Yeah, and as we mentioned earlier, our next episode will be the Reign of the Superman review.
Right, in which Superboy plays a big part.
Exactly. It's direct to video, so you guys can watch it too.
Yeah, look forward to seeing that on all streaming services within the coming week. Or actually, I think it's already out.
Yeah, I can't wait to check it out. The Death of Superman was a really good animated film. So hopefully this lives up to that caliber.
Yeah, so yeah, that review will be next week's episode, and the week after that, we will be reviewing Punisher Season 2. And then after that, we'll be doing a duel episode that pits the Penguin versus Kingpin.
Yeah, just to get a match in with one of the characters from Marvel's and Netflix's universe.
Right, and the Kingpin has been kind of big lately. He was the main villain in the Spider-Verse movie, and he was, in Daredevil Season 3, so we think he's a good character to pit in a duel. And also, we've already used the Punisher in a duel episode against the Red Hood last year. So,
Right.
Yeah, it'll be fun. So look forward to all of that in the coming weeks.
Please don't forget to rate, review, share, and subscribe us with your friends and family. And specifically, if you could get anyone you know to rate us on iTunes, we would super appreciate it.
Yes. Talk to you guys in a week.
Up, and away.
True believers.